July 16, 2025, LaPaz North Township Fire Protection Territory meeting. First item on the agenda this evening is approval of the June 16th, 2025 minutes. Members have been provided a copy prior to. There is a copy at the back for public if you'd like to inspect that. I'll ask for any additions or corrections to the minutes from the board members.
I move we accept the minutes as printed.
I second.
Have a motion to approve and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, those are approved 4-0.
Thank you.
Second item is billing service update.
So we had our bi-weekly meeting with EMSMC yesterday. We are still waiting on Medicaid approval. They said that this is taking longer than it would normally take. The beauty of working with a company though is that the woman who's been working with me to get everything set up knows somebody who works in the Indiana State Medicaid office. So she reached out to them yesterday, and at about 4:30 yesterday afternoon, somebody from Medicaid was out here to inspect the premises. So hopefully the ball is quickly rolling on that. That is the only entity that we're still waiting on. Everybody else has been approved except for the Department of Labor, but they are essentially onboarded the first time you have a call with the Department of Labor. So until we would encounter a scenario, we wouldn't onboard with them.
Who might be covered by that?
Federal employees, I think, was the instance when that she had said when we had asked. So somebody who works for the court system potentially, anything like that, which could happen at some point with having a couple of federal courts up in South Bend. So, but she said that some entities never have a call with the Department of Labor. So take that as it comes. So you guys have the sheet, the report that they provide each month that shows what's been billed and what's been collected. We did notice and brought up in our meeting yesterday that we have actually receipted in. So we've had more money deposited into our bank account than what EMSMC was reflecting. So they had to go in and reconcile that and figure out what companies were not providing them with the receipts. So that, I got an email today that they've got that all worked out. So the number that they reflect on here is not accurate. We've actually receipted in about $18,000 thus far. So we did get our first bill from them for the services and their portion of the collection, which was $210. So that will be a little bit skewed this following month because they will also reconcile that amount, I am sure, but just so that you guys are aware. Any questions about the report? So when you look on there and you see there are a couple of spots on there for Medicaid and Medicaid MCO, it will show that nothing's been received on that. That's because we're still waiting on the Medicaid approval. So once that comes through, we should see.
Did they indicate normal length of time on that?
I don't think, did they indicate the normal length of time for the Medicaid approval?
She said normally it's fairly quick afterwards, but for some reason.
But for some reason ours, I think maybe ours, fell through the cracks or something.
The way I understood her, it was within 30 days of the site visit, roughly. She said it's
Right, but
approved.
yeah. And
So-
obviously they just came out and did the site visit, so I think it just must have completely fell off their radar. They didn't receive it or something.
Are you set up then with most companies?
All companies.
All companies, okay.
Yes, everything else is set up. It's solely Medicaid that we're waiting on at this point.
And I think up to this point, they only needed information on 2 reports that we submitted.
Correct.
There was 2 reports, we had to go back and find a little more information for them to help them out, but, so it's been pretty seamless. it seems like.
So far it's been
Yeah.
relatively smooth.
Did the export reconciliation and we were off by 1 run.
Okay.
In the center of that run number, so I'm waiting to get an email back on that.
Perfect. Okay.
So is this money put into a special account or?
So we created a separate bank account because I didn't want to give all of these companies access to the township's main account.
Right.
So we established a new bank account.
Right.
All of the money is going into that bank account. I am waiting on the State Board of Accounts
Okay.
to give me instruction. They were a little perplexed by the situation on how we're supposed to go about getting the money in from one fund to another fund. They said it would be a bank-to-bank transfer, and so at this point, I'm waiting on the state to give me firm guidance, and right now I'm just letting the money sit in the account until.
So the reason I was asking too was
Sure.
the cost from EMSMC, or if that could be netted out of that account.
No,
No, okay. Paid separate check.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, I would want to do that just so that way it's
Right. Okay.
all tracked that way. It's paid out of the general fund. Yes,
So, did you say that we've received 18,000?
yes,
And show me on this report where that number is.
it's not on there because what we had receipted in, EMSMC was not showing that much in receipts. So this report is not accurate to the number that we've actually receipted in.
Where will it show up on this report? On that second page, like in the center there, payments? Is that where it'll show up?
Or will it reconcile once everything is running right?
Take on this back
Oh, on the back page.
thing. Accounts receivable reconciliation report. Payments.
Yes, that is where you're going to see
Right.
that once it's,
Okay, that's the same
Accurate.
number as
Right.
here. Yeah, it's the same numbers here.
yes, page 7.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. So our bank account shows more than what shows here?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you very much.
you are welcome. Hopefully by the July end report, since they've got everything worked out on their end, July's report should be accurate for you guys. Any other questions about that?
My other question was, at the top of the first sheet, it has zero balances at the top, will those start populating as time goes on too?
Yes. So we don't have 6 to 12 months
Right,
yet, but yes, that will.
that'll be great when that starts popping.
So you can see what the majority of,
Yes.
yep. Yep,
Okay. We'll go on to the next item is employees update.
yes. So we have 2 full-time employees now, both Chad and Tony have started on. So we are covering Monday through Sunday now, day shift. They are covered both by full-time and part-time at this point. So Tony works one day and Chad works the other day. They're not working together at this point. They're working with part-time employees.
So it's, as you described at a previous meeting, there's one of our full-time people working every day and.
12 days, 12 hours
12 hours
a
a
day.
day.
Right,
Yes.
okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
So I'm gonna try to do this without divulging too much personal information. So of the 2 employees that we've hired, one of them does not need health insurance offered by the township. The other needs health insurance. I've sat down and spoken with both gentlemen, and the consensus would be, we talked about establishing the ICRA, so the Individual Coverage Health Reimbursement Arrangement. Both of these gentlemen would actually prefer being offered a health savings account. which truthfully for the township, there really doesn't bear much in a financial difference depending on what the territory and township decide they're going to establish for a reimbursement. You know, for the HRA option, we have to set the parameters of what are we going to reimburse this person each month for the health insurance versus allowing that person to go out and find their own health insurance. And if it's an HSA approved plan, we would put money into an HSA fund for them to use as claims are incurred. Versus, yes, you have money to help pay for a premium, but any claims that you have, any medical expenses that you have come up, you're still financially responsible for. So.
And the ECRA, the other one only pays for
Premiums. Premiums only. You can't use it for any qualified medical expenses.
So if they're both in agreement with that, you have an example of a motion we need to make to bring that, to enact that?
So it would be making a motion to recommend it to the township that that's what we do for the employees. And what we would do is establish an amount that we're going to contribute to an HSA annually. In 2025, the individual amount that you can contribute to an HSA is $4,300. That's the maximum. Now, we were budgeting $12,000 for insurance for employees, for each individual employee. So even if we wanted to do a max contribution to an HSA, we're still coming out over $7,000 ahead from the budgeted amount. So that would be up to the board to determine what amount they'd like to contribute to an HSA. And then that employee would get an HSA approved health plan. That's the stipulation, as the government says, it has to be an approved plan. And then an HSA fund would be established for each individual employee, which they can do through an accountant or through a bank that offers an HSA. And then the township would simply deposit money into that HSA account.
So it's $4,300 if it's an individual account.
If it's,
$8,550.
if it's married, correct, but we don't have to do that. We
Or
can,
if they're 55.
they can contribute an
Right.
additional $1,000. That doesn't apply to either of our current employees.
Okay. I guess my question is, well, will you let it vary if we've got somebody that wants to come on that's got a family?
Well, Chad already has a family, but I think,
But then, that they need coverage on.
so,
I mean, that's my question.
Right.
HSA.
I understand what you're saying, I think I do, and I guess my response is that we got two birds in the hand, and I'm not gonna worry too much about the ones in the bush.
I mean, we would still be giving them half of what they could do, and they could always contribute more themselves.
correct. And the
And
benefit,
saving money from what we had budgeted.
right.
Yeah.
The benefit of HSAs are these funds roll over from year to year. The money goes in tax-free. Interest in the HSA fund grows tax-free. And then if you would ever need to withdraw the money for medical services, you get to withdraw that and it's tax-free. So it's a triple tax advantage.
And you can even carry that into retirement and use it in retirement.
Correct.
After
The money
65 or
rolls
whatever
over
you
from
have.
year to year, which is different from an FSA, so a flexible spending account, it's use it that year or lose it. And they could take the HSA funds with them if they ever choose to leave. We hope they don't, but if they do, then they still hold on to that money.
And at my age, it's helpful to note that you can have a beneficiary.
Correct.
At anybody's age, really. At anybody's age, they should. I guess I don't see any problem if they both want HSAs. I see no problem with that proposal.
At what level? This is going as a recommendation to the township.
So hadn't we set the original original recommendation had been what, Emily?
For an ICRA,
Yeah, but for like 5,000?
no, and I don't think we ever got to we had to wait until we had
Right.
employees to get census information to figure out what we were going to be able to do, so we hadn't even gotten to that
I
point.
thought we talked at one of the fire meetings about what that level would be.
But the ICRA was set at, it was gonna cost us how much?
We didn't know.
None of that has been determined. It was when I sat down to talk with the employees to start moving on that side of things.
Does the maximum employer contribution vary year to year?
For HSAs,
Yeah.
the HSA allotment changes every year. So the maximum anybody can contribute this year is $4,300 for an individual. So that's either an individual, an employer, a combined, whatever, it's $4,300. Next year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it's going to $4,350 in 2026. I could be wrong about that though, so please don't quote me, but
And have any of the new tax law changes come through change that too? Because those aren't all out yet, is what they
Right.
are.
And the maximum contribution from an employer is,
it could be that amount. That
4,300.
say the number?
this year, 4,300
That'd be the maximum for what we could contribute.
for an individual, correct.
Uh-huh.
Now,
For
we
people,
we could put 2,500 in and they could max out the rest.
correct.
I think we should put in the maximum of 4,300, right?
So
Is that what you're saying?
that would be my proposal.
Yeah.
I think that's a great benefit for employees. Now, technically, I think that we need to differentiate. Are we going to, at this point, just treat everybody as an individual versus the people who have a family that technically they can contribute over $8,000 to an HSA? I think we need to, rather than wording it as let's contribute the maximum, it needs to be,
A certain amount.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because otherwise you got one guy you're paying 4,300 and another guy you're paying over
8,000.
8,000. Yeah.
So.
and there are employers who do that, but, and treat employees differently
Well,
depending on their
May
circumstances.
come down to the fact that in order to get someone hired, you would have to offer that. Now, you could say, well, that would have to be offered as a salary stipend as opposed to an HSA contribution,
That could be,
but that
then it's,
definitely might come into consideration.
it could.
Yeah.
And anything, we can always go in and modify it, it's,
Yeah.
let's figure out what we want to do in the present situation, and then if we bring on somebody who says, I can't do it unless, then we,
Do either you or Matthew have an idea of what other departments are doing who contribute to an HSA? Is it 4,000, is it 8,000, is it,
I think that answer is that's all over the board.
it is,
It's gonna be each place besides, I mean, I'm sure there's, because when you look at general employers over the board, you've got some that will contribute the max out for clients, and you've got others that have a set amount, whether it be 2,000 or 3,000 that they give, and that's all they give.
or they do a match.
Or they do a match.
Or it's someplace that doesn't even fund an HSA, but they offer group insurance, or it's an employer that offers the ICRA like we had originally talked about. I mean, so it really is just
The only other,
pretty varied.
there's not another department that I can think of that has 2, 4, 6 employees other than Argus, but Argus's provider unit is the town.
So
And
they have,
I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing they probably have offered them the town's insurance because they've got all the town employees. I can't think of another town or another department. Bremen only has 2 full-time firefighters, but they're employees of the town. And so they've got town-wide group coverage. So I can't think of another department that would even fit this. I guess Lakeville now, and I have no idea what they do.
Walkerton. They have town benefits, so.
Yeah,
Walkerton has town
Walkerton
benefits as well.
EMS is in with the town of Walkerton employees, so. I think that this is half of what we budgeted, plus it fits the bill for the two we have and gets us started. And if we want to revisit it after we have 2 more employees and have the completely different scenario, or 6 total employees, or.
Because
I'm really slow and sometimes I don't hear very well. What was the $8,000 number?
That is for a married couple, for somebody with a family.
correct.
So,
I don't think we need to designate whether it's married or single, we just need to say, we're giving 4,000 or 4,300, or whatever number we want, to an HSA of their choosing. So if they're married and they want a married one, go to unmarried, so that they could max out more if they wanted to, and put more into it. But
so,
this is what we're contributing.
so we're already, I think we understand that we're already at kind of a low side on salary. We understand that. I guess I would advocate for the maximum, which would take us up to the 8,000 for the married.
I mean,
The problem is if you have one married employee and one single employee, now you have animosity because you're giving one of them 4,300 and one of them 8,000
That's
plus.
not to say that I haven't seen it though, in my profession. I mean, I do see
think
that.
I would start in now recommending the 4,300, and we can come back and review at a later time, or next year. If next year we see that the whole thing has shifted, I mean, we can up it, it could be up next year. I would make a recommendation that we go with, a contribution to HSA and leave it blank like that for 4,300.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second that. So we have a motion to make a deposit for 4360, was it? Or just 4,300?
4,300.
Towards an HSA for each employee,
Once they are in an HSA approved plan.
once
Yes.
they provide an HSA approved. And I have a second, So, any further discussion? All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No, actually, we're still on
Okay.
line 3, sorry.
Gotcha.
I have a couple things in this section.
Okay.
Secondly, I do have the report, we did the second quarter for the volunteer compensation, the nights and weekends, for the EMTs and drivers, so I do have that report, if anybody would like to look at it. Lastly, we had briefly brought up the administrative work line item that Chad has taken on a lot of the admin responsibilities. He handles getting me the payroll reports that we need. He's handling the scheduling. He's handling a lot of the billing. So I think that we should consider utilizing some of the administrative line item of the territory budget to compensate him for those services. I think it should be prorated for the rest of this year. So we have budgeted, where's my map? But, 12?
Yeah.
Thank you. That might be for next year's. That might
It's on
be,
the 26th.
okay. I think this year we had it in at 15, and so we lowered it for next year, but, I think looking at a number around 7,000 for the amount of work that he's doing is not out of line, but that's not for me to decide.
I tried to come up with, is this a 2-hour-a-week job? Is this how to create a standard for it. But when Sandy Robertson does test call, even when he's on duty at his part-time job out of town, if there's an EMT available to run, contact 602. So it's not just while I'm here, I'm doing extra admin stuff. It's taking care of the volunteer pay, it's taking care of scheduling, taking care of full-time pay, part-time pay.
Getting the extra information needed for the billing service.
The reporting stuff. I asked for some quotes on some stuff and, within hours, he's giving me numbers back. So it's a huge, huge help.
Can I intercede? Can I mention something?
Sure.
When you're doing scheduling, have done that with the ambulance service, it is not a one time a month. It's an everyday, multiple times a day of doing, because things change. Somebody can't work, somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that. So it's not just a short little period, it's an everyday occurrence type thing. That's just information from me doing it.
If somebody gets sick at 4 a.m. and can't come in at 6 o'clock, it's his phone that rings. So.
And he had also, when he was working at his previous full-time job, I know when that had happened, he called off Ryder so that he could be here when that happened. So he just,
You mentioned the $7,000.
that's correct. Yeah.
Is that for this year because of being a short year? or-
So I would prorate it for the rest of this year. So we would take the 7,000 divided by 12, and that gives us a monthly amount.
And that's your recommendation?
That would be my recommendation. It's,
I move that we recommend that recommendation to the township.
That was something that I had discussed. I discussed it with Chad, I discussed it with the trustee, and then Chad had input on what he felt his time was worth. It wasn't just one person
I
saying
didn't-
this is what
yeah,
it
this
needs to
isn't a
be.
fly-by-night number necessarily.
So-
I know-
I would like to see though, if possible, I know sometimes it's gonna be estimating. I would like to see a calculation of what he thinks he's doing per week kinda, so that when we look down the road, we can kind of say, this job is really requiring this kind of amount of time. Does that make sense?
Like
And I
hours spent on certain tasks type, or doing
I don't-
that type of stuff? What
doing
you're
that
asking?
type of stuff, yeah.
Write that down,
If you're okay
going
with that.
forward, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, to me, would give us a good guide for the future.
Sure.
Right.
On what would be there, or if it should be more, or if it should be less, depending on how much hours he's spending on it.
I know when we put the original package together and through our meetings, we talked about the need
The
to
need
have
for some kind of
administrative
admin.
assistant
Yeah.
or those duties to be performed for billing and
Yeah.
scheduling and all those things, so it's nothing that's new, so. yeah.
Did we get a second?
Yeah, it's- So the motion's been made and seconded to increase, to provide $7,000 towards administrative tasks necessary.
So I'll just say that I appreciate your comment, and I think that will be helpful going forward, so thank you very much.
Any further discussion? All right, take a vote. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Now we can move on to Cory. Okay, did each of you get the email that I sent to you from the state?
Yep.
Okay,
If you guys didn't get the phone warning, we are under severe thunderstorm warning, in case you need to let anybody know at home or anything.
I like 10 of
thank
them.
you.
Okay.
That's every one of my actions.
Okay, so I've been trying to educate myself about perf as much as possible over the last week because it's trying to sit down and understand this is fun. So the two options that we have available at this point in time are perf my choice or the perf hybrid fund. The perf hybrid fund has been around longer. Perf my choice just came around in the last decade or so. The perf my choice does not include a pension. It is strictly a defined contribution account, much like a 401k would be. They would have the option at full retirement to roll that into an annuity if they would like, but then obviously the annuity only lasts as long as the funds last in the account. Versus the perf hybrid is a defined contribution account, so it's got that 401k aspect, but it also has a pension benefit. And at 10 years, somebody becomes fully vested and would have a lifetime pension. So that's, in my opinion, a pretty substantial benefit. I think the opinion on that could vary. In the perf my choice, the member is required to make a mandatory 3% contribution to that.
It's also required in the hybrid method.
It is in both of them. So I'm getting to that. Either one of them can be paid by the employer should we choose to do that. We can make their contribution for them. The My Choice plan, you become immediately vested in the member contribution amount. It does not allow for you to take loans. I didn't do anything. Must have just gone to sleep or something. So I know that Steve Barber had emailed me about that, the ability to take a loan out if somebody needs to take a loan out. So I wanted to let him know that they don't allow you to do that unless you are 62 years old with at least 5 years of service. So just so you were aware of that. Both of them allow the member to make an additional 10% contribution to the defined contribution amount should they choose to. With the perf my choice, that one, so again, this is the one that does not offer the pension benefit, okay? With that one, we have the ability to elect between 0 to 4% of a contribution amount of their salary that we contribute to that. And we get to set what that amount is. It's a requirement, we must contribute something, but they give us a variable amount versus the hybrid account. It's not a variable amount, it's a set amount, and it's 11.2% of their salary. So higher contribution amounts required in the hybrid. And then in the My Choice, we also, so if the employee decides that they're going to make additional contributions, we would have the ability to elect to match those contributions if we wanted to. So both of them have immediate vesting. The My Choice would give immediate vesting for the contributed amounts by the employer, the interest and earnings. The My Choice has 20% vesting each year that you're employed there. So you would vest a little bit sooner in the My Choice versus the hybrid takes 10 years to become fully vested, but you gain a lifetime pension. And what,
So the hybrid takes, do I recall correctly, perhaps you just said that, it takes 10 years?
10 years to
Yeah.
become fully vested for the lifetime pension.
And it's 5 with the other.
There is no lifetime pension with that one, but yes, you would, yeah, you'd be fully vested for your funds after 5 years.
So you'd be vested for the pension in 10 years. If the employer makes a contribution on the hybrid, when does the employee become vested in the employer's contribution?
I believe immediately. I would have to clarify that with the state,
This says
but I don't,
20% vesting in employer contributions for each full
Full year
year
of
of
contrib-
participation.
yes. But their contributions, the member contributions, is
theirs.
immediate vesting.
This says immediate
Yeah.
for their own contributions.
And the interest and,
Right.
yes.
Sounds like I would favor the hybrid then.
To give them the lifetime pension benefit.
Yeah.
It'd be okay, but what if you're not gonna be there 10 years?
Well, you're just not fully vested then, everything.
Correct, you're just not fully
It'd still be there,
vested.
it just wouldn't be fully vested.
But you would not vested in the,
So if you retired in year 6, you know,
You'd still have a pension.
You still have a pension, it's just not a, yeah, it's just not a lifetime.
and so you'd still be able to access if the,
The funds.
The funds, the defined contribution amount,
yeah.
yes.
Can I ask a question?
I can't guarantee I'll have an answer, but yes.
Well, if you will, I think you've said it, but I don't hear them repeating it.
Sure,
Didn't you say for the hybrid that they would have to contribute 11%?
that's the employee, or, I'm sorry, the employer responsibility,
Okay, the employee, not the
Yes.
employee.
not the employee, it's the employer's responsibility. Yeah.
Sorry, I.
Nope.
So our,
No, you're
our
fine.
cost would be greater with the.
With the hybrid,
correct.
correct.
But the flip side of the coin is they'd be fully vested at the end of 10 years.
They're fully vested under the My Choice in 5. But
No pension,
Right.
the YouTube that I looked at went through the computation. It showed they took the years of service times a factor, I think it was
It's the-
1.1, and then figured out how much you would get on a monthly basis based upon your years of service.
Mhm.
But that was for the hybrid method.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you care if I share?
No, I don't care.
Okay, so Matthew's fully vested in a hybrid plan, and after 15 years of service, 12?
17,
Nah, wasn't that high, I don't think.
anyway.
His pension, his lifetime pension amount is about $750.
Yeah. The ones I looked at with 20 years was like 1150 to 1200.
Yeah. But it's also based off of your income level.
Right, correct.
So, and some of his years of service were from La Paz, which, no offense, Kathy.
It goes off the average of the high 10 years, I
Yeah.
believe is what it said, so. Right. But the one plan, if you reached, it was your years of service plus your age, if it equaled 85.
The rule of
You
85.
could retire and you still could work your job,
Yes, and collect your
regular
benefit,
pay.
yes.
What's the dollar amount difference in our budget?
So it would depend a little bit on the fixed contribution that we opt to make if we went with the My Choice plan. So let's say we just did the maximum 4% and we, let me see. 4%, 3%, 6%.
Well, that was 50.
So if we did 4% of the employer fixed contribution, and if we opted to do the 3% required contribution that we opted to make on behalf of the member, we would be at 7% of their income, which would be $3,500 in the My Choice
Per
plan.
employee,
per employee,
right.
How much was that again?
So you multiply that times 6,
correct? 3,500, Lisa,
Versus the other plan?
versus if we went with the hybrid plan.
That she sent.
And again,
That's,
this was opting to make the full contribution, the 11%, and also doing the 3% that they would be responsible for. We would be at $76.60
per employee,
per employee,
under the hybrid method.
correct?
I can see how the state is doing this. They really are enticing the employer to do the My Choice. They're really pushing that. The problem is that, I mean, they're nudging employers away from pensions.
Right.
And that bothers me. I don't like that. I mean, I never had a pension,
Right,
not
Yeah.
behind their.
Army doesn't have one either.
But it just bothers me how they're pushing you this way. I'm not gonna oppose the My Choice if that's what we decide on. But that just bothers me.
How does it happen down the line if it's decided 2 years from now that we start with the My Choice and we say 2 years from now, boy, really, we should be in the other one?
so I believe we can switch. Let's see.
I couldn't find that anywhere, that was.
More alerts. You know, I haven't been alerted at all yet.
I haven't either.
Damn Samsung phones.
And I'm sorry, I don't have all the answers right away because this is a whole learning curve for me too. Don't see an immediate answer on that, Lisa.
It's about 20 minutes out right now.
Did they, I'm sorry, I didn't watch the video, but did they explain, number one, how the state invests these monies? And two, did they explain, what happens to the contributions if some of that's in the market, when the market goes down? And will the state back up any losses, or does the employee bear that risk?
So there were, I think, 7 different funds you could put this in.
Yeah.
And the first 4 were relatively, I won't say risk-free, but
Conservative.
conservative. And then there was the small index fund for small companies, the foreign, and then the large.
So
And they said right in there, we do not recommend, we're not recommending any of these. You need to talk to your individual
Investment.
Right.
investment advisor to see what area would be best for you,
So,
depending upon your age too.
right, the employee for their defined contribution amount, they get to opt for what funds they want to do. And they can also opt to manage and pick those funds themselves. Like, so, or they can opt for the perf system to manage that for them,
When
much
you
like
look
a 401k.
What it says about which is better, it says the choice depends on the individual circumstances. Perf hybrid offers more security guaranteed pension, while the My Choice has the potential for higher returns, but also carries more risk.
Right.
So that would allow, if Chad wanted to put his at high risk, and somebody over here was very conservative, wanted to go low risk, that they could each take their own chances of what they,
Right.
as they choose.
So my question then is focused on on the pension.
It's really not our choice how they invest it, it's their choice.
Right.
It's, they're
The
putting
state, well,
Well-
you're saying even with the pension funds,
They have the right to choose what
the
risk level.
employee.
Yes. I mean, that's what it looks to me.
and so,
Does it look like
so,
that to you, Steve? That
So-
they had the right?
So my son has perf through the school, and he has some of the higher risk because he started at a very, very young age. And
Sure.
I will say that for a while, he got clobbered, but, I mean, now,
He's made up
some of
what he
those
lost.
are, oh my gosh, it's amazing
Yeah.
what they're doing for,
Yeah.
you know, the modest amount that he put in.
Right.
And so I think, you know, it's the time value of money, and of course, it's the fluctuation in the market when you retire, and there's so many factors. But
I
the
think,
thing is, it's just
So-
encouraging someone to set something aside for when they retire.
Right.
I think is,
I think to try to boil it down to just the nuts and bolts of it, it's, do you want to pay a little bit more and offer the employees a pension? Or do you
I
want,
guess I would prefer to start with the cheaper one, and then if the one that we don't have to put the huge thing in the beginning. But I would like to research more to make sure that we could convert next year
to the other?
to the other. Because I would hate to say I'm limiting the amount that we could put in. Of course, we could always no, we can't raise HSA one. But I would like to start a little more conservative and expand it. Because that's another way we could give people a raise every year and not really cost them money, but give them retirement money.
so I'm gonna change my, my thought here, and I now prefer my choice. And here's why. This, for those of us that are older, we think of a pension, those of us that might have had a pension. My wife did, I didn't. The employer bear the risk of the amount that was in the pension. I'm hearing something different here, and that is the employer chooses how they're going to invest that amount. Am I hearing you right or not?
No,
No, the
No.
employee,
employee,
Well, I'm sorry, the employee decides how they're going to invest that amount.
yes.
of the defined contribution fund, not the pension. I think pension's a
Was
set.
So who bears the risk if the market goes down and it affects the pension dollars? That's what I wanna know.
The employer, the employee,
so.
the employee. So I was in perf at Bourbon PD, well, first at La Paz PD and then it transferred to Bourbon PD. And that's the hybrid plan. I could have invested my money however I wanted to out of that fund, and I bear the entire risk. So if the market crashes, I don't have much pension left.
But that was his choice.
That was my choice. And I chose to never invest any of it. I never touched a single thing. I just put it in there and left it go. And that's also my choice to not grow in the market, but that's the safest,
Yeah.
least risk, so.
Yeah,
So that's really not us choice, that's a them choice.
that's the employee choice.
Yes.
If they invest.
We're not
So-
choosing that, they are choosing that.
Yeah,
If I was an employee and I was given this question, I don't think there would be any doubt in my mind I would go hybrid because I want something that's going to last the rest of my life.
And you
but
can
you're not
designate a
gonna be
beneficiary.
vested in the pension unless you work for
10
10
years.
years.
Yep.
And so if you work for 8 years and you have health problems for whatever reason, you change jobs, then you don't get that.
No, you're gonna get what you there, you're just not guaranteed a
Lifetime.
pension.
It's just not lifetime.
So the one is gonna get a lifetime pension no matter what. The other one is gonna get their money put in back, but they're not guaranteed a lifetime pension.
That's why I said, during the hearings and a lot of meetings, everybody asked me or accused me of just trying to create a job for myself. And I don't want a job. I bought a construction company. So, and I said it numerous times in public meetings, the only reason I would consider that is if I was at like 16 years in the perf, if that 4 years to get me to 20 years in perf was going to make a huge difference in my retirement, then I would have to consider looking for another perf-supported job. And I'm not. I'm not looking for a perf-supported job. I don't want it. So,
But that could also be a draw for somebody who's got,
But just because
Years
you
up
don't want
at
it
South
today
Bend, but they
doesn't
wanna
mean you
slow
won't
down.
want it tomorrow, yeah, down the line. Because life can change and you can.
well, but it doesn't make enough difference for me to get it to 20 years.
Right,
I didn't know, at the time, I didn't even look into it because it wasn't even on my radar.
right.
So,
So-
but if I was not going to retire for 6 years, or 10 years rather, and I was gonna vest myself in perf, and currently our 2 employees don't reach 65 for 10 years,
more than,
huh?
yeah.
More than 10 years, so unless they don't wanna stay in this business, then it's not going to affect them. They're gonna be here for 10 years unless the board changes and things change or something happens drastic. But as of today, they both seem to be pretty happy. They've both been in EMS for a long time.
Yeah, it says the perf hybrid has 2 buckets. One bucket guarantees a set amount of money for the pension and the other one allows them to invest and potentially grow their money. My choice has, only has the investment bucket. So they can't, if we go with the one, the perf hybrid, the,
My recommendation might be this, in that, if we take a vote on whatever plan here, this still has to go to the township. In the meantime, you might wanna look at that video and see if that doesn't answer some of those questions, and then, that may change,
And I'll also
Possibly
try to get an
change
answer
that.
from the state
I'll
about
defer to you guys on.
changing. Like,
well, I guess
one to another.
the one thing that was unclear to me, is how, so say that we said we're gonna give them this set amount of money, for this example, let's say $4,000 for retirement.
Mhm.
And they wanna put more in themselves, and it was unclear to me, reading those different charts and looking, can they contribute part of their wage also?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the thing I was a little blurry on when I
Yep.
was looking. So it's still gonna max out at the 76.6 and so if we do the 3,500, they can't put more in or they can't?
They can. They
Okay.
can still put more in, so they could still do up to 10%
Oh, that's right.
additional.
The 10% was on that chart.
Yep.
Yep, sorry.
No, you're fine. It's a lot of information.
Yeah, up to additional 10%. They can do that on either one.
Yes.
So basically, you're looking at the difference between the total cost will be 4% for the employer under the My Choice plan, or 11.2 plus 3%, 14.2%.
So the My Choice also gives the option of paying the 3% required by the employee.
Okay.
So we potentially could go up to the 7%. So those numbers that I gave you were the employer footing the responsibility.
So the minimum under the hybrid plan would be 11.2%.
11.2%, yes.
Which is 76.60.
No, that 7660 included the 3% additional that the employer, or I'm sorry, that the employee is mandatory, required to do, but they give the employer the option of
And
doing
that's
that.
at 50,000.
That's at $50,000, yes.
So it's 60,000, that would be,
Hang on.
yeah, should be another $1,600 more, something like that. Like, maybe 8,300, that's all.
I wish I could do math like that in my head, Steve, but I can't, so
Well, I don't know.
bear with me. 8520.
Okay. Times 6. And we
Right.
have the budget of 12,000, no,
Mm-mm.
no,
No, so in 2025,
that's 7660.
that's for the 2026.
Yeah.
That's the 2026 proposed number.
How much was that proposed number again?
Say it again,
How much was that proposed amount that you just said?
7660.
7660. That's a $50,000 loss.
Yeah, 51,120.
But that's what we're anticipating the budget, so. And we have those fees locked in, those wages
Mhm.
so far,
Mhm.
so. I guess it's like a carrot to get someone to stay the full 10 years.
That was sort of something I had mentioned as well, that this
And,
could be
you know,
incentive
you
to
think
put in
about
10
it,
years.
is you're gonna give them a bonus based upon their years of service here too, remember? We
Mhm.
went through that the last.
Longevity.
meeting. So.
Yeah.
That's an additional benefit on there, where does that fall under?
It's not on
under
the,
our budget?
it's not on the budget yet.
Okay, so
'Cause we
that would have to be increased.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
Not till the third year
the
though.
third year.
okay.
She was asking me about it and I said,
Ask the
give
employees.
the board the information and then ask the two employees.
Say ask employees?
Yeah.
Well, but we need to determine how to spend our money, but I guess if we select one method or the other and it's not enough, they'll let us know, right?
Yeah, well, I come back to the big question, but I think before the final decision's made, can the choice be changed?
I'm not
Yeah.
finding a direct answer. It sort of looks like, in just what I'm originally reading, no. Like, it almost looks like once you've opted into a plan, that's the plan that you're in. But I'll get clarification on that. I think I would prefer for a vote to be made on what the board is comfortable with, depending on the outcome of that, so that way we can move forward with that, because it sounds like if we're going to opt in to something and want it to start September 1st, you have to do it by the end of July, that we have to follow all these steps that the state sets out, so I prefer not to set this out and wait another month and a half, 2 months.
Now I have a question again.
Yeah.
Okay. In a 401K, which I am on these two pension plan, it's not a pension, it's a 401K. On our way is whatever the employer pays, that is not guaranteed until you hit whatever years. So if you're saying you have to hit 10 years, does that mean that if somebody quits in 7, they wouldn't get any of that money?
No, they will still get the money that's been contributed. It just is not the lifetime pension.
They will be they'll be vested in 7 years then?
They will,
All that money?
They'll get their contributions back,
Whose contribution?
their contributions.
But you're doing all the contributions.
They get the
I think the
employer,
contribution's made for them, they'll get back.
So
It's
the
not fully vested.
3,000 that you're paying for them,
they will still have that benefit,
they
yes.
won't get the
They
11,000
won't.
that you're paying.
loses that.
You see what I'm saying? To be vested, usually the employers, the money is coming later. Your own money you get, but the extra money that the employer's investing is what you have to be vested to get. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
So I'm asking if they would pay all of that 14,000 per year. I'm not saying not to do it, I'm just wondering how the investment works if the employer is paying them.
Well, it wasn't 14,000.
It's not 14,000, so that's throwing me
How
off a
much
little
is
bit. So if we went with the hybrid plan
Yeah,
and went with the max,
Yeah.
it's 7,660, roughly.
okay.
So,
766.
But
Yeah.
see, there again, so my question would be to, how much would the employee be vested if they went with the hybrid plan? Say something comes up and they're done in 5 years.
they get whatever that contribution has grown in interest in those 7 years. That's
So-
still their money. That's like if when I left my position and my employer had made contributions for me, that money didn't go back to the employer. That was still in my 401k.
Right, but if you're not vested,
That's in the
That's-
match, the match portion.
right, that's what I'm trying to tell you. So, I don't know, I just know that, I just don't want you to get caught with,
So
we're
the,
gonna give this and then something comes up and we
Sure.
can't give it, I just,
so the link that you gave us went through that scenario about someone that pulled out
Early,
and it showed a lower amount.
right?
When it shows you that calculation, and so you know that going in.
That if you,
okay, so somebody can see.
So
Yeah.
it does, I mean,
Okay, sorry,
no, you're fine.
that's, I
I
just,
think it's geared for someone that's gonna be here at least 10 years,
It is.
the hybrid method.
right,
And then the other method is I would say might fit, if you're trying to entice perhaps someone who has experience that wants to finish out a career here, the hybrid method probably would look good to them.
Well,
So-
it says when, AI says that, you will lose your employer's contributions,
that's what I'm trying to.
according to the percentage.
According to
I'm trying to tell
You
you.
will lose a portion of your employer's contributions that are not yet vested,
investment schedule, right?
along with any investments earned on those, under invested.
Under the hybrid method.
Too many
That
people
says
are
on
thrown-
anyone that's not 100% vested.
Right, that's how.
So on any of them, if they're not
So
100%.
but this tells us that
So like in his case,
they
he's
are
okay.
invested, they are immediately invested in their contribution under the My Choice.
Under the My
Choice.
Choice,
But
right?
Not the employer's.
employer's giving them,
correct.
Correct.
that's what
But
I'm
it's,
saying.
it's
That's in both of
investing
them.
faster under that than it is under the hybrid method.
Right.
In essence, if you leave your job before being fully invested in your PERF or similar pension, you risk losing the uninvested portion of your employer's contribution. So it's important to consult your retirement plan documents
That's
before
20%,
leaving your job.
Right.
20% vesting in employer contributions
Per year.
for each year, so that's for 5 years.
So in the My
And then-
Choice, it's 5 years, and in the hybrid plan, it's 10 years with the pension.
Well, that really makes the My Choice sound more beneficial.
I'm not saying, yeah, if I
Because 5
was,
years is a lot, I mean, an extra 5 years is a lot for some people.
It is, but pension versus no pension is also a big deal.
but you can use the 401k as a pension. You can
It's not
get-
lifetime.
You, until it's gone, but if you just put like $700, I would be dead before I get mine.
So I want to answer
I
Mr.
do.
Barber's question though. Having dealt with a client who had money in a pension fund
Mhm.
that was paying out too much, they had to take a reduction,
Correct.
and that was voted on by the membership, and they took a reduction. So it would last the lifetime of everyone in the plan. However, I know some plans that have not voted that way and they actually ran out of money and then they try to go back against the pension guarantee fund. And that's not a selling point, it's never to be used as a selling point, but that is something that is available and it's through the federal government, but it's not 100%, we're gonna make you whole, it's a
Right.
much reduced amount, but at least there's something.
Right.
So,
I had some uncles
Yeah.
get into that, and that's what theirs kept getting reused, pension out of South Bend's
right,
pensions.
that's exactly.
He is clear down to hardly anything now.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
just
even the
saying.
guaranteed pension is not totally guaranteed.
It's not, so,
That's
yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna look at, we want to make a motion or recommendation for the township.
But it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's hard to.
I mean, I like the fact that the My Choice lets you be fully vested in 5 years versus 10. That's huge to me.
But if it were me 30 years ago or whatever, I probably would have gone the hybrid. Because then you're gonna get a pension.
Right.
So.
That's not a world I've lived in, so.
And there's a beneficiary to the pension
And there's a
too, right?
beneficiary to the
Yeah.
pension, so if Matthew passes away, I still get his
Right.
pension.
But there's also beneficiary to his retirement account, no doubt.
Well, sure,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, it's just that I would
So it's
also
not like
still
you're
get,
losing, nothing.
right. But to still have this, okay,
As
it's
long
not
as it goes-
guaranteed, as long as it's safe, but yeah,
As long as
that I
it
would
fills out the
still have.
beneficiary part of the
Yeah.
application.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion, and I'll say this, that I would recommend the My Choice plan to the township board with the caveat that between now and their next meeting that we need to revisit the video that was supplied that may give us clear guidance on a final decision if that's, but I think it's important that if we're gonna try to attract, unless we find a real young person, that the My Choice plan might be much better to attract someone, especially if we're willing to contribute.
Are you stipulating that the 3 plus 4%?
I would say yes, because I think we need to step up at least that much to show good faith to an employee that, hey, we want to make this worth their while. It's not just a 10-cent item here, but,
And that's part of your motion.
that would be part of the motion. That would be a total of, 7%, 3 plus the 4, yeah. So that's my motion.
Second. I second it.
We got a second, okay. Is there any further discussion?
No.
No down there?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
Okay. Budget.
Budget.
So you've got 2 different sheets here regarding the budget. I think it's probably going to be easiest to work off of this one. Okay, the numbers that you see in here are going to be the same as what you see on here, except on this one, I've added some of the lines together. So like personal services, there are a couple of lines that get added in to be one personal service box. So do you want to go through it, or would you like for me to go through it? Since this was your, okay. All right. Everybody have their papers ready? Okay. Under personal services, We've kept the salary at $55,000. The insurance, I lowered that to $4,400, and that was, I was going to modify that if the board was not on board with the HSA option, but I operated for the budget purposes that you guys would probably go along with the HSA option. So that is budgeted for the maximum for 2026 as it's currently presented. Like Lisa said, tax law could always change. That number may fluctuate, but we just have to roll with the punches. So $4,400 in insurance per person. Employer taxes, $5,500 per person. The perf number, if the township opts to go with the My Choice plan as well, that perf number, we will go ahead and adjust and that number will drop. But for right now, you'll hear the high end of numbers, okay? So that brings us to $72,560 per person. We lowered the number of employees, one person, so we lowered that to 6 proposed people for a total of $435,360 for full-time staff. For administrative compensation, we budgeted that at $12,000. That's $3,000 lower than this year's budget. Overtime is budgeted at $15,000. That also was lowered by $5,000 from this year's budget. We added a line item for part-time employees of $20,000. So if somebody calls off work sick and we need to fill it with a part-time employee, so on and so forth, we have a line item for that. Volunteer firefighters, so this is the run money that they get at the end of the year, car and clothing and run money. We kept that the same at $40,000. Volunteer officers, we kept the same at $20,000. I added a line item for employer taxes for the part-time employees of $2,200. Bringing the total personal services to $544,560. That is lower by $92,012.50 from this year's budget. Do you want me to read that number again, Lisa?
Yeah,
$92,012.50. Okay. Under supplies, we budgeted office supplies, we kept the same at $5,000. Fuel, we kept the same at $21,000. The station maintenance supplies, we kept the same at $5,000. Medical supplies, we increased that to $18,000. That's a $3,000 increase. Clothing and gear, we budgeted at $35,000. We lowered that by $5,000 from this year. Communication, we budgeted at $25,000. That again is lower by $5,000 from this year. Bringing the total supplies to $109,000. That section is $7,000 lower than the 2025 budget. Other services and charges, we did keep a miscellaneous line item on there because that's just always safe to do, but we did lower it to $4,000. It was $5,000, so we lowered that by $1,000. Maintenance contracts, we kept the same at $11,500. Insurance, we kept the same at $50,000. Steve, if you feel the need to pipe up on that later, please do. Utilities, we lowered by $2,000, so it's now at $20,000. Truck maintenance, we kept the same at $40,000. Small equipment, we budgeted $45,000, that is $5,000 lower. ALS assists, we increased. So we did have $3,000 budgeted this year. That $3,000 has been spent, so we doubled that to $6,000 next year. Training, we kept the same at $8,000. The Acumed overpayment, we kept the same at $2,000. We removed the $40,000 loan repayment line item altogether. So total other services and charges is $186,500. That is $37,500 lower than the 2025 budget. So the fire budget in total was lowered by $144,013.
So major equipment purchases is the township's responsibility.
So we did not budget anything at this point in time from the equipment replacement fund. That money is, so, let me, okay, anything I do here is gonna be pulled up over there, so let me just be careful. Just not open any. So the equipment replacement fund presently has $47,841.92 in it. So I have not budgeted anything for that yet, but I'm certainly open to discussion about that. Anything that we do, obviously, $47,841 is not going to do much for major.
So the things that we had talked about it in various meetings, okay, was, cot replacement and monitor replacement in an ambulance. Possibility of refitting the box on the new ambulance.
Right.
So you had some paperwork on that.
Yes. So, I foresee the heart monitors and cots being a 2025 discussion that we're going to be having.
Okay,
So that's gonna be this year's budget, and we're gonna probably be doing an appropriation for that.
all right.
I think that that's probably something that's going to be on the horizon for us. The interlocal agreement states that any increase that the township sees in the lit certified chairs that come in are to go towards territory purchases.
So it'll be substantial.
Correct. So I don't know yet what our lit estimated number is going to be next year. They usually don't roll that out until late fall. But I know prior to the territory taking effect, we were bringing in about $90,000 in lit certified chairs. If that number climbs to $300,000, we've got $200 and some $1,000 that are supposed to be spent on territory purchases. And that's not to say that we have to spend it every single year. We could allow that money to accrue, but that needs to be tracked
So,
When
so,
would that first payment come in?
next year.
so the new law that went into effect will change that dramatically though.
Yes,
And it's gonna lower it because part of that's gonna go back to
to the
the
county,
county,
yes.
right?
So I don't know how that's going to shake out just yet.
Yeah. And if that goes back to the county, is that based upon the total amount or the excess at the end of the year?
It's based off of the total amount of the budget, is my understanding. But I don't want to pretend like I understand all of, I don't. I'm,
Did you have a training session on that? I'm sorry, that was me being sarcastic.
I am-
I read through
But
the
it's a
legislation, it's like, oh my
It's-
God.
yes,
I just, yeah,
It's a percentage of that amount.
correct.
right,
I'm constantly reaching out to the State Board of Accounts with questions
yeah.
and getting back the attorney type response where it's
We don't,
not really answering the question.
Right, because they don't really know right now.
It's changing, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
We don't know.
so,
so here's my point though is, is if we're looking for next year for any of these items, like a ambulance or things like that, those items probably should be included at the appropriate, you know. Or the chassis needs to be ordered, we can order a chassis now.
I think that would, typically, that's the way that it works. If we decide we want to move forward with something like that, the chassis would be purchased this year, and then the box remount would probably be next year.
And that would show as an encumbered amount for next year.
Right.
We just don't know if we'd have the money for it.
Well,
We probably would.
Any big proper complaint?
Well, I'm just saying that if, you know, if we're putting it on here, we need, that actually goes on the township though. The ambulance purchase, right?
depending on what fund we're budgeting it out of.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Where are the rest of the ambulances at? Are they in the township?
Can you, I'm sorry, are you talking about like possession of them, or where were they budgeted to purchase previously?
Well, where are they considered on our balance sheet in essence? To where they, yeah, so, I mean, I think we need to keep it, and I know we've changed it here, but
So we transferred all the money from the fire fund over to the territory.
Correct.
And the cumulative fund is for.
The cumulative fund was also transferred into the territory
So that's
general
into the
fund.
territory, so that needs to.
Yeah.
That needs to come through the
so it needs to
territory.
come through the territory then,
I
right?
have a little input, that's just, sorry. I don't know your 25 budget, I'm not real sure, but you said it was less or more. So you originally budgeted $980,000.
Yes,
You're not gonna spend that much this year.
correct.
So you've got extra money now.
This year, yes.
Yes,
That's, so it's sitting in there because next year, who knows, but you do have extra money in there.
So
And it-
remember though, that the balance that you have at the end of the year is gonna go to reduce the taxes you collect next year.
Right,
So,
but
You have to be careful because you're gonna get a big swing.
but the assessment's all
She's saying
up.
that, it'll smooth the curve up and down
Right,
if we take part of it this year and part of it next.
Well, that's the whole point of
Level it out.
ordering a chassis
but,
out
This
of
year.
this year or
yeah,
whatever.
and the assessments are going up, we already know that. So next year they're going up, they've already put in, so it's probably gonna be close to what you get this year. What's the percentage
Well,
going down?
it may not be because the county's getting part of it next
The
year.
county's gonna take part of the funding from our assessment.
But the county's part of it.
No,
Us.
no.
No.
It's a
Well,
separate pot. It's like you and me. We might agree to pay on a lot of things together, but you're
Yeah.
really gonna spend your money how you want, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
spend my money how I want. And
Yeah.
it's the same here. The township is gonna be different than the
Yeah.
county.
but I mean,
So I wanted to throw that out there for anyone else on the board here, but, yeah.
So, I really appreciate you working hard on this budget and, trying to reduce that. As I thought about the budget and kind of where I wanted to be, I was hoping for a 20% decrease from our budget last year. And I think for me personally, I think the simplest way of doing that is to, move from 6 employees to 5.
So keep in mind that we did not budget the 100,000 in there that it takes to pay the part-time staff currently. So if we hire 6 people, we don't need all the part-time staff. But one of those positions, a little over one of those 6 positions pays the part-time people that are currently working what would be the full-time staff.
Full-time staff also gets perk and all that, where your part-time staff
doesn't.
doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's ultimately cheaper for the township to have one less full-time employee
It is, but what I'm saying is if we take full-time staff off of that number, then we have to we have to
Increase the part-time budget.
big time increase. the
No, I agree
part-time.
with that.
Right.
So-
We're still gonna decrease the overall expense because we'll have less coverage on insurance and retirement.
Right.
But you also have less chance of having personnel as
To use the restroom,
a
I'm sorry.
part-time versus a full-time. From the fact that we have, if it's volunteer or a part-time paid, we just don't have enough.
We still had, I know this past weekend, we had they're almost 36 hours that were not covered by an EMT on a schedule. Doesn't mean somebody's not gonna ante up and take the call if one comes in, but we still have a lot of open hours on weekend nights that are not covered.
But currently, we've got 4 full-time,
Two.
2. So even if can we find 3 or 4 full-time employees? I mean,
Well, I interviewed several, and I interviewed a couple that were pretty good candidates. They're just not going to be EMTs until the end of August. And so I chose, obviously, not to hire somebody that can't work on an ambulance yet.
yeah,
I plan to start another hiring process probably maybe the end of August, 1st of September, and try and find those other 2 people that I've already been approved to hire. So
Tell me, where would the 20% reduction come from? What are you thinking? I mean, these are the items on here, what items, would you cut to do that?
So the previous, the budget for this year was like 980, some in the vicinity of 980.
basically $1 million, so you gotta cut 200,000 out of it.
73, 980,073.
And so
They
if
cut
I,
144 over that, so they cut about 15.5%.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So my goal would be 984,058.
984, and we're at 84.
784.
784.
So Steve, are you looking for a 20% reduction just from the fire budget or overall? All of township?
Just the fire budget right now.
Okay.
So do you have a proposed line item budget that has that cut in there? Or you just had a number in mind
well, I
that,
think if you drop the one employee,
I tried to identify the package and with your figures here, if we go 55 with salary and then the benefits and the total was 72, if we went with the, if we subtracted 72 from the 72,560 from the 840. That'd be 760, so put another 24 into overtime. Or approximately 20,000, additionally 20,000 into the part-time, I mean. So move the part-time up to 40. And just operate with 5 people. I think that's pretty close to the 20% reduction of the fire territory budget.
It is my job as a fire chief to disagree with you.
I get that.
Do you have money to continue building upstairs in the township fund that's not gonna come out of the fire budget?
Right, so the, but I'm not talking about, when I'm suggesting that we only do 5 employees, that's not, with the exception of part-time employees, that's not addressing any of these other items. That's not touching any or reducing any of the other line items.
So if you have a balance that you haven't spent at the end of this year and it rolls over into next, okay? And whatever that amount is, that theoretically will reduce your tax that we collect, because they're not gonna go with the max budget, they're gonna go with what we submit,
Right.
okay? So,
How much were you upping the part-time employees?
Doubling it to 40.
Right.
It's not exactly 20%, but.
Right.
While also still covering the nights and weekends, the volunteer shift stipend that they've currently been getting.
Well, he's saying you'd have 4 full-time employees plus 1 extra budgeted, so he's taking an extra 72,560 and adding on $40,000 in the part-time budget to cover that.
Bringing the part-time to 40,000, not adding 40,000.
Right.
Right.
It's
Bringing it
adding
to
40,000 to 72,560, which is the 5th employee.
No,
No,
he said add 20,000 to
He's-
part-time
he's-
employees.
I understand, but right now, we didn't budget a big number. It cost about $90,000 right now to pay our part-time staff. $90,300, okay? So if you take, you're saying cut it to 5 employees, and we have 4 full-time, so that leaves 72,560 left for the 5th employee. You follow? That's not here.
Right,
So he's taken the 72,560, adding 20,000 to part-time, which makes it a total of 40. So 40,000 plus 72,560 is where he's coming up paying the part-time people. Did I lose you?
Well, you got 5 total up here, and I know that includes the chief, but,
no, that doesn't include the
No.
chief.
okay.
no.
Well, so there's 6 up here allotted, he's just saying take that 6 to 5.
That's what I said.
Yeah, well, that's not what I understood you to say.
We're gonna have 4 full-time employees, and we're budgeting for 5. So that means we have 1 person's salary extra,
That we were using to pay for part-time.
correct?
That was,
So I think that, is that doable? Probably. It still doesn't necessarily cover shifts. It doesn't necessarily account for any cost of living raise that hasn't been discussed. If we, and we haven't got to the good of the order on my portion yet, but if we attempt an advanced class, which I've been in the process of budgeting and planning and trying to figure out what that's gonna cost, I just don't wanna cut us short. Because if we go to an advanced level, which is tenfold patient care, in my opinion, and most people's opinion I talk to, that has to be done 24/7. Doesn't have to be paid people here, but your first ambulance out has to have an advanced EMT on it, and we need to be able to make sure we cover that.
So, just speaking frankly, I share your goal of becoming an advanced operation. It doesn't appear, though, that we share, that we're seeing eye to eye regarding how soon we want that to happen. I see that as happening down the road. And I'm getting the sense that you're wanting to move to that within a couple of years.
I would love to try it mid next year. And I would hope that the board that I'm looking at would hope for a fire chief that wants to push for a progressive department and want to provide better service to their citizens they represent.
And yes, that is true. However, I do not believe that we're in a position where we're ready to support those kinds of numbers.
And we're, meaning you're representing the board in that statement?
Yeah, I think,
I'm speaking for myself.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm speaking for myself. I'm not ready to support that timetable.
So my thought is this, is that the funding vehicle is in place, it's working. We knew that when we changed over from the old system to this system that it would take time to get things up and going, which we're diligently working at. But at some point in time, you have to say, well, I know I want to save tax dollars too, and I think that we're showing good faith in 14% reduction or whatever that ended up to be this year, but it's not the 20 that we met. And I don't know if the 20 is a magic number or not, but I think that with the amount of billing that we have coming in, once we get Medicaid approval, will enhance that, because that money's gonna go back into the territory. And, you know, that helps make up that difference. I mean, we're not, at least not on what I'm seeing here, we're not showing revenue from operations of the ambulance service on this, because it's still too soon to know how much.
Right.
But, you know, we see what's being billed, and that is substantially increasing now.
right,
Now, we'll get a percentage of that, maybe
yeah, that's the gross.
60, 70%, you know, if that's, maybe not even that much, but, you know, if you look at that money coming in would help offset that, but, you know, the problems with scheduling like we had before, having enough people to cover, if we don't move forward, I think that we're still leaving that problem unaddressed. I mean, it's still there, and it's still gonna have
Right.
weekend, evenings, or whatever, unless we have the staff to have someone there when they're supposed to be there.
And I look at it from the perspective of, we've seen the increase on our property taxes now, right? People are seeing the increase, they're feeling the hurt. We need to make sure we're providing the level of service that makes sense why they're seeing the increase, when they can see that we have an ambulance that's leaving the station within 30 seconds, a minute of a call coming in.
And
That needs to,
I don't want to dwell on this topic, but there's a few line items in there that I would have lowered a little more, and maybe even come close to reaching that 18%, but not knowing where a lawsuit falls leaves, you know, if we lose half of that equipment and I got to go buy 10, 12, 15 radios at $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a piece, I kind of had to protect some of those assets that I don't have answers of what's going to happen. So, you know, like the communication line, $6,000-7,000 portables doesn't go very far, and I chose to lower it by 5,000, taking a risk. You know, but the whole premise of the fire territory was personnel and staffing. And I guess I'll bring this up, not a little early, but Mr. Grolich did attend a budget meeting with the county, and they are going to fund the $50,000 equipment grant for next year again. So that made me feel a little better about some of our equipment. Now that's going to be limited on what we can use it for, but that is going to be another equipment funding mechanism. But if we have to go and spend $70,000 out of my budget to equip a second ambulance,
Do you know on that 50,000, is there any knowledge to like, could that go towards our ambulance?
They will not allow,
not
It's gotta be
equip,
regular
it
equipment.
can't
Yeah,
be,
no apparatus.
they don't allow apparatus, that's a caveat.
and I don't even know that they would let me split it into, here's an invoice for 4 pieces of equipment that go on that ambulance, different equipment. They wanted air packs, they want communication systems.
Lump purchases versus.
When John asked me what I was looking at, I said either communication equipment or a well, because I know that our well is slowly dwindling that we put in 20 years ago or 18 years ago, whatever it's been. So those were the 2 topics that, just off the top of my head, I haven't even talked to my body or officers about that, but. Question?
So the well is here in town.
We have a 4-inch well that supplies our domestic water here to our bathrooms and kitchen. We have a 6-inch well that we fill fire trucks off of if we have a fire. That's our only water supply in the North Township, unless we go fill at the Lake of the Woods and pump lake water, which we do. We
I know
have.
one time you come on Gracie Freed's property too, see if you could pump up for,
Who's that?
out there on Lilac. You go down there on Lilac before it curves and goes up back over the highway. I mean,
To
it's
the right-hand
trees
side.
now.
Ponds right there.
Okay.
There's a pond there, 'cause I know you guys. come out
Used to
there.
be, he used to be a CPA that owned that.
So the only thing I would say is let's not disclose too many people's personal information, because this is.
Yeah. So I guess,
Thanks.
I kind of go along with him. I'm lowering one employee, and kind of planning for what equipment we can get on the loan match. So I've come with Steve Barker on that.
So I'm waiting on a motion.
Go ahead and make it, Steve.
I'll go.
I move that we adopt the budget with the following changes. Or with it, would not adopt, but we recommend to the township the following budget, this budget with following changes. Reducing the number of employees from 6 to 5. And so that's 435, 360 minus
I'll handle the math, sorry,
72,560.
Steve. Because I'm also going to lower the perf if we go with the My Choice plan, so I don't want, the numbers are a little irrelevant.
Increasing part-time employees from 20 to 40,000.
Okay, we have a motion.
Do I need to make a motion?
No,
That's
I
it,
just made
I
a
second,
motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motion as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Aye.
Deadlock 2-2.
So we have a 2-2.
We can share that with the township, I suppose. I don't know the,
This is gonna be tricky.
I'm sorry.
I said it's gonna be tricky.
Yeah.
Because I'm not anticipating having a tiebreaker.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe I know what she's referring to. So,
So we have an either or to present to the township at this point in time.
so I move that we present to the township our, that we are deadlocked on this motion.
I don't think we need a motion for that. I mean, that'll just,
Yeah.
Okay,
that'll just be the results that we report to them.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. With,
Next item. Trustee update.
Yep, I am sending the snapshot email to each of you now so that you have each of the fund balances to look at yourselves. We're at 54% of the year has passed, and we're at 18% of the fire budget has been spent. So we're well under. That does not include the SCBA's that we know that expense will be coming out, but we don't have an invoice on that yet. So we've spent $68,704 on personal services, $13,680 on taxes, $35.97 for volunteer officers, $3,800 for fuel, about $1,200 for office supplies, communication, $4,876, it's $4,876. Oh no, I apologize, I was reading the wrong column, that was clothing and gear. Communication is $1,823. Medical supplies, $6,950. ALS assists, $3,000. Insurance, $41,683. Utilities, $74.91. Maintenance contracts, $2,032. Repair and maintenance, $13,777. Small equipment, $3,200. Training, $1,000. So total spent $176,819.14. I'll leave the McQueen stuff for good of the order for you guys to discuss. So I'll just leave mine at that for now. And
All right, next item, good for the order announcements.
Sure, 3 people in driver operator class, that's gonna be one of the potential OSHA required classes. Al, Chad and I are taking it. Chad and I are instructors, so we'll be able to teach that to the rest of the department. During the insurance audits and things, driving was about 80% of the conversation with insurance. So that's a big key. Been talking about advanced class, trying to better our service. Pump test, July 31st for the 3 big trucks that are out there. I have 3 sets of turnout gear ordered. They're probably gonna take a month or 2 to come in.
they are under the $5,000 cap apiece, just so you're aware.
So, talk briefly about the $50,000 grant from the county that at least the grant committee is going to refund. Now, that doesn't mean the commissioners will go along with it, or
It seems like it, yes.
seems like they will.
Yes.
So that sounds favorable at this point. Air pack update, those are in the final stages of being prepped and tested to be delivered. We have some dates that are being set for fit test. The company comes with all the different size masks. We put them on, a computer tells which one fits us the best. So it's air driven, so it knows if it's getting leaks or anything. So they come and do that to get the correct size masks. I know that Lisa had asked about service calls and good intent calls of our year-to-date calls, which
You guys have copies
I
of
really
several
appreciate
different
that, too.
reports.
Yeah.
That was
And we-
Chad, that was
Yeah.
Chad, that was
Yeah,
one of the
thank
We
you,
can-
Chad, I appreciate this.
We can tweak it a little more, but there's a ton of options. So all of the numbers that you see on page 2, the 100, 300, 400, 500, and so on, underneath each of those, there might be 30 options. So there might be 101, 102, and so on, for every kind of different fire that we have. So those are kind of split out. I know that service calls, one of those big ones would be a lift assist, which comes back to the treat no transport things. Doesn't necessarily have to be only that, but that is one of the bigger ones. The good intent calls, I know that call number 611, which is a NIFRS code under the national system, is canceled en route. So if we get dispatched to a crash or a vehicle in the median of 31 at Veterans, and we get halfway there and police get there and say there's nobody injured, there's no fluids leaking, we go home. We don't even make the scene. So that's one of those. So, and I'm guessing that that's probably better than half of that 32 is canceled en route.
So I'm just curious, is the interchange Veterans Parkway and 31, is that in North Township?
So dispatch, if it's a southbound call on 31, dispatch usually sends us. If it's a northbound call on 31, normally they send Plymouth.
Yeah, because the south
That's
side of
kinda
it
where
would be,
it's at.
yeah, that's about the dividing line of the property.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Railroad line.
All of Veterans Road is not, none of Veterans Road is in
North Township.
North Township.
But it's,
Yeah.
the railroad, I agree
It's a
with you,
good
the railway
place.
track,
It
yeah.
used to be the old railroad on Michigan
Yeah.
Road anyway, so.
Close though.
They don't
It's
know what
within
to
100.
do.
And actually, oddly enough, down between 31 and King, the north side of, is that Seventh Road?
7th Road is ours.
Seventh Road is ours, so it's,
That's weird.
yeah. There's some other places in the township. It
That's
gets,
Center Township, you'd have thought that it went,
yeah,
Well, the south side's Center Township.
the south side of Seventh Road is.
it's the north side.
It is not.
Yeah.
It is not.
You
Because
looked it
North
up.
Township ends the road up, because Seventh Road is
No.
part of Veterans, right?
So,
Is
They,
Seventh Road
they
the key?
continue.
right,
That's what I'm telling you. Veterans Road, west of 31 is all in Center Township.
right,
But east of
East of
Lilac,
Lilac.
the north side of Seventh Road is North
is
Township.
North Township.
Until you get to King. You get to King and it jogs up to 6B. The
Right.
north side of 6B is North Township, the south side is
Really easy.
Center.
We don't make nothing straight.
Yeah,
Yeah, that doesn't even agree with the school system though, because like, the houses that are on King, south of 6B are Plymouth.
But nowadays, any of them can be Plymouth.
yeah.
All of the same.
So anyway,
So on the fire index one, I just want to point this out for them, because I know this is one of the questions I had. The aid given number, those are calls that were asked for mutual aid. So when we're responding to Plymouth, or we're responding to Walkerton, or Polk Township, because they've asked for us to respond, that's what those are.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate these, thank you, Chad.
Does this, are you guys good with the fire index one?
Like, so does,
I put
not
up
to
a
kill all
couple
the trees.
different options just to see what you guys would prefer. So, I mean, if you guys can, you don't have to answer now, but if you guys can just let Emily know to let me know, that'd be great. Then I'll just do one
report rather
year-to-date
than,
on
yeah,
every meeting and.
yeah,
So the first set is 1 month approximately.
yes.
Yes, the one with the 30 count on it,
Yeah.
Steve. Yeah, I just ran that one just to show you what a monthly one looked like.
That's good.
Um,
That's great.
you know, one-on-one, it can get broke down. You can see what every number is if somebody wants to. It's just, that's a little cluttered up for a public meeting.
Yeah, I just think this is, it's kind of been hard to grasp the right numbers. And so this makes it much more clear as to what's going on and more transparent, so I appreciate that.
And the bottom line is an ambulance and a fire truck leave on every call other than a potential mutual aid call. So if the pager goes off, the fire truck and an ambulance both go, if there's manpower available. So whether it's somebody, if it's a cat in a tree and we gotta climb a ladder, we have our ambulance go with us, because if somebody falls, we want the ambulance there.
The cat scratches.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing on my list is the potential ambulance remount. McQueen we updated this and it's at 251,886. That does include a Ford F-450 chassis. So that's chassis, taking the box off of this ambulance, completely going through it, making any updates or changes, modifications that are needed, and repainted, remounted on the brand new chassis
And decals.
and decals.
How old is this one?
2016, yeah.
But it's also very high mileage.
It was a
Yeah.
transport vehicle.
That one's got 250,000 on it.
How many miles does a typical, I mean, what's typical on an
The
ambulance?
19 has 50 on it.
50,000.
So,
So they're a little different. So the 2019 ambulance has never done long transports.
Right,
So it's get in it, start it up, turn
Run
the
it
lights and
hard.
sirens on, and you're running emergent to a call. Could be construed as harder miles than a transport to Chicago down the highway. They still might be running 75, 80 mile an hour lights and sirens, but it's a lot of interstate miles. And we don't know a lot of the history about the 2016.
what does a new ambulance cost?
a brand new one,
Yeah. Or one that's a couple years
About
old?
400,000.
what was Plymouth, they just got 400?
Just about 400,000.
Plymouth just spent 400 on theirs,
On a brand new one.
so, and they just got that, what, 3 months ago, John?
Yeah, I think so.
And so you could, I mean, just with the increased prices that you keep seeing, I'd probably add another 20 to that. So you're probably looking at 420.
Because they previously had a proposal for McQueen and it went up from the last proposal.
It only
Right.
went up, I'm just saying the price, the longer you wait to do it, the more the
Well,
price is gonna be.
yeah,
It's
with
just the
anything.
way things are going. Your chassis prices will continue to go up.
So are they redoing the box?
They will redo the box, yes.
So the other caveat to this, and I don't know all the answers, because this discussion just came up tonight, is what the bid process looks like. So, and I don't, maybe John can tell you, does this, anything over 150,000 has to be
be
bid, but, so you're still bidding a remount. So it would still have to get spec'd, advertised through the bid process, if we chose to do this.
And my guess is the only one that's gonna bid that process is gonna be McQueen.
Probably.
Seeing how they bought everybody around here.
Yeah,
That would just be my guess.
they're local.
The Crossroads do our other one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
This one
McQueen
came
bought
from,
Crossroads out.
Okay.
McQueen has bought 5 different ambulance manufacturers out in the Indiana, Michigan area in the last year.
and we bought this one used from Crossroads, McQueen.
Okay.
Actually, the last, as long as I've been around, I think all of our ambulances come from.
Well, the goal is to be able to field 2 ambulances. And I think at this time, we have the money. I think that it fits into our long-term plans for services for our community. And so I speak in support of this.
I guess my question would be, have we looked to see if there's one that's maybe got less mileage on it that would be better than what we have and trade in on it?
There's
So
currently not much available
Okay,
that's that's close to that, to something that's gonna have less mileage.
Right,
Or
There's some
by
available.
Somebody else with a problem.
right.
There's some available, but they're
If
all,
it's out there, it's a limit.
they're all higher mileage.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you're saving a lot of money going the remount
Remount
option.
instead of new.
Well,
That's one reason when we bought the used rig,
Yeah,
that we bought it because that box had never
Had not been
remounted.
remounted. You can usually remount an
You can only
ambulance
remount it
once.
once.
And how many miles is that good for? I mean-
The remount's good for as many miles the chassis can handle.
And it would be a new chassis. We would be getting a new
How long
chassis.
would the chassis last?
I would say 10 years, roughly 8 to 10.
They used to try and do it on a 5-year
5-year
rotation, but that was running double the calls because they were running 2 townships.
It usually worked out at least 10, about every 10
I would say 8 to
years.
10, I mean, just
Yeah.
on an average from
Yeah.
what my knowledge is of talking with people from McQueen and Crossroads and other ambulance services.
So, and I mean, I think the thing that we also have to bear in mind is that we're not just talking about an ambulance needing, at some point, we're gonna have to buy a new ambulance or remount an ambulance. We've also got all the fire trucks as well. So it's tackling, taking off bites at a time when we can. So it's really easy to say, well, let's wait 2 or 3 years, but then you've got fire trucks that are gonna need to be replaced as well.
Looking at the
No,
weight.
I-
I was looking more at, are we spending $250,000 and for a couple $100,000 more, could we have something that will last
New.
a long time?
Sure.
Yes, that
Yeah.
was my big question.
I was not directing that at
They're
any
gonna-
one person, just making a general statement that we need to bear in mind that we're also looking at fire trucks that are 24 years, almost 25 years old now, that,
Basically, what they're gonna do is they're gonna take the modular body off of it, they're gonna go through it. Anything they find wrong with it will be fixed. Any
So-
updates that we need, so basically it's gonna be a new box. It's just gonna be a used new box. It's still gonna last you, it's refurbished, thank you. It's gonna last you the same amount of time as the new ambulance would before you had to do it again.
That is where I was
Yes.
going with that. Thank you very much.
so it's not uncommon for ambulances to be remounted.
The one that's out here is
Once-
remounted.
Right,
We've done
it's-
it before.
right.
I just wanted to make sure we were making
Yes.
the right investment.
It's at this
South Bend
point,
Fire remounts theirs
Yeah.
frequently.
it's at this point, if we remount that ambulance, then we've got 2 remounted ambulances. So when the time comes again, now we're looking at new purchase
Right.
because they've already been remounted.
I just didn't want to put us in a pinch later because we should have replaced this one
Right,
and we didn't. Or you know where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Or that,
yeah,
for a little bit more, we
we could have
had-
gone new,
Yes.
right,
This one has served its purpose well,
yes,
but you're on borrowed time.
yes.
And that-
Very
yeah.
borrowed time.
Well, I think we need to do something. I was, to me, which one is most?
I mean, if you.
Yeah.
I could ask the question, but I'm pretty sure the price is gonna be right there in the $400,000 plus range.
So for over the $150,000 amount, we're gonna have to
Has to
start
be
the bid
bid.
process.
Yes,
So we probably we would recommend to the township to do that.
That'd be my goal.
especially so that way we can use this year's budget to pay for the chassis and,
Right, and next year.
Yeah, did you print this? So basically, what they're saying is the delivery timeline would be is once the paper's signed, you're 16 months.
Oh.
Roughly, you're looking at roughly
Yeah.
4 to 6 months for the chassis. And then the rest of the time would be getting the box and stuff done. But that's just what they put on here. Don't mean it's gonna take the full 16 months, but that's what the timeline is.
That's what they've got.
Right. So, and they do that on purpose, just to cover themselves.
Yes.
Did you give them a whole?
I did.
So you guys, you have a list
have a
of
list of
all
what
of
it
No,
includes.
I read through it.
what the new equipment would be, new
Yeah.
lights, new wiring.
And when I met with the gentleman, there was a few things that I asked him to change, just to make it more convenient for our members. Putting the radios on the other side of the ambulance where they're always sitting with the patient, instead of having to be behind the patient to talk to the hospitals. Sealing off one of the compartments that we put our gear in, that way
Doesn't move.
it can't contaminate inside of the
And all in
box.
carcinogens and things
And
like that that
stuff,
could be
so-
in the gear.
I mean, nothing major
Nothing structurally.
Yeah, I
Just-
mean, a couple drawers, relocating them to a different surface area, but it's all stuff that's fairly easy for them to do from what he told me.
So will both boxes be the same then?
Very similar
Very
inside.
similar, except for Mobile 2 has a full bench seat, which is the newer one.
Right.
This one only has a 3/4 because it has a compartment right there.
Okay.
And that compartment's very nice in the aspect of when we are able to go all the way advanced, all the IV stuff and stuff will be right beside the person. They won't have to be getting up to reach over and get everything. So it makes it safer for our people on top of that.
Unless you can think of something else, that's all I have.
I'm gonna bring something else up, but I don't know if you guys want to.
So
If
is
you're-
it related to this?
It's not related to this, it is related to spending money, unfortunately.
So I would like to move that we recommend to the township that they pursue, go through the steps, whatever they need to do.
Bidding the remount of an ambulance.
But we can direct them to get the specs ready and.
Sure.
They're ready.
Bid process.
You have a copy of it. You already have a copy
That's-
of
Gotta do
it.
more than that to it.
Right, but you already have a copy of it. Just have to put it on the actual spec form.
So we want a motion? Got a motion?
I move.
Okay. Motion's been made, we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I don't really wanna I didn't wanna do this in the trustee update. So anything over $5,000 comes to you guys, right? I know that with the pending lawsuit out there, there have been some settlement discussions made. Nothing official at this point in time. But I think that preparing for if we lose a set of equipment on an ambulance, if we lose a heart monitor, if we lose a cot, and a load system, those are all things that are well over and above the $5,000 threshold. I can either call a special meeting, for you all to make a vote then, or if you guys wanted to discuss it and make the recommendation that if we have that occurrence and we lose one set of equipment, that we need to move forward with replacing said equipment. That you could make that recommendation to the township, so then the township could move forward at that point in time as needed.
Public comment this evening?
Why are you all looking at me? I really didn't have much. I was just trying to add as I went along. I am gonna be nosy about the lawsuit. I have a feeling it's from Union North. I mean, is it
It's not involving North Township.
because, when he brought up a lawsuit, I'm like, that's what you claim insurance for. So you can't have a lawsuit. So people can't sue you.
Right, this is not medical malpractice or
I
anything
see,
like that.
I see.
Not that kind of lawsuit, nope.
It's a tit for tat between them, okay. And, yeah, I think that was, when that came up, I'm like,
What is that? Yeah.
they don't do lawsuits like that.
Yeah.
I guess I would make a motion that we call a special meeting, so
Okay.
we know what's going on.
So let us know, sure.
Yep.
If it,
Yeah.
would you agree that depending upon the circumstances, that might need to be an executive session?
No, that wouldn't be an
You don't think
executive
so?
Doesn't
session.
qualify for
Okay,
that.
No.
all right,
It's equipment purchase.
okay. I'll second that.
Have a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
All right,
Opposed,
That-
same sign.
probably would not be one that I'd go through the lengths of advertising it and waiting 2 weeks. It'll be posted on the website, it'll be posted on the sign and on the door, and we'll try to hold that as soon as possible because that's something that we'll need
Okay.
to try to move on rather quickly.
So depending upon any possibilities, maybe begin to look at alternatives or something like that?
I believe that
We
that's,
have it.
they're ready if that happens.
Okay, good.
I do have, I got one more thing.
Sure.
Steve talked about. I agree with Steve on trying to lower one more person and trying to save a little money. I know you guys wanted that much, but in all reality, it's the people out that's paying for it. Not somebody here in town that's seeing the ambulances go. I'm paying for it, and I don't see one. But there's a lot of farmers and stuff that really, really need this money. And you still can cover a lot more with the 5. You know, they've already give you all this money this year, and you're gonna, you know, I think if you stay with 5, at least I can go back, because they're asking me every time I come out of one of these, what do you know, are we gonna have as much, are we gonna, if we can start like
Right.
Steve's trying to do,
I just,
budget
please,
down and budget down.
please take back to them that even, right now, we're at, we don't have a solid motion, or anything like that, but please take back to them that we did,
I
Lower it.
got it.
okay.
I got it
I mean,
all.
that-
I'm writing everything
Okay.
down, because I got a lot of.
I just want them to see that, like, the good faith effort was already
I
made.
find that important.
So what-
Yes, and they just.
So what I just wanna reiterate in it from a different angle is that I do appreciate the effort of the trustee and the territory
Yeah,
and notice how much they work to lower this budget. I appreciate that.
I do also.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a date for the next meeting?
oh, yeah.
So,
That's all right, good.
so I think we'll,
Notwithstanding any emergency.
right, yeah, the interlocal doesn't really dictate what to do when the territory board doesn't agree on a budget to present to the township. And the township has the ultimate, establishing the budget. So my meeting with the state is August 16th. The township has to come up with a budget, to present at that point in time. And then we will go into the process of the
Meeting with
budget
them on a Saturday?
hearings. I'm
Well, I
sorry,
was
not
gonna
the
say, If
16th,
need be, we could have another fire territory
not the 16th, the
meeting
18th.
with Roger present, so we had a full quorum. And then, so we could get an accurate vote,
Right,
one way or the other.
okay,
That might be something that we need to do.
Okay.
Obviously, we can't set a stance, I mean, we can report what we've got, but, knowing the situation
Right.
there, we probably still need to have,
yeah, because otherwise I'm the tiebreaker,
yeah, could be.
and I'd prefer not
Okay.
to be.
Well, all right.
So we meet on Monday. Why don't we look at, this is quick, July 28th?
August 8th,
No, July 28th.
July 28th.
Thursday, oh, I'm sorry, wrong month.
that's fine with me.
That's fine with me.
Is Roger back then? Do you know?
I think so.
Okay.
That's,
How far in advance do you have to post your meeting?
Was he gonna be gone for
Legally,
2
24
weeks?
hours on the door.
I didn't know, that's why I just
Yeah.
asked.
Yeah,
For some reason, I was thinking it
He's gonna be
was
gone 2 weeks or just a
yeah,
week?
well,
2 weeks.
Was he gonna be gone 2 weeks or just a week?
okay, you know what, let me call him. I'll just call him and see if he answers. Cause I'd hate to set it and then, I'm okay, Roger. Calling to find out July 28th. You available for a meeting then or not still? Yes, it is. Okay, plan for July 28th, 6 o'clock. Thank you. All right. We're still in it and we're trying to set the next meeting, but we will probably be rehashing the budget on the 28th. Okay? Thank you. Bye. July 28th, 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
I'd also like to tentatively schedule a territory meeting on September 22nd. Also at 6 o'clock. So that will be the pre-budget hearing presentation. So I want the territory board to hear everything again before it goes to the township.
22nd,
Yes,
Monday.
2-2.
we're back then.
So if we put this out for bid for an ambulance and we come back within, obviously that bid opening would have to be at a public meeting.
Right?
Does that have to be a territory meeting since they've seen the budget number? Or if it's not close to that budget number, does it have to come back to the territory?
What do you think?
My gut would say no, because you guys have made the motion to move forward with remounting an ambulance and it's gonna be whoever comes in with the lowest bid.
So who's paying the bill?
Township.
Yeah.
So then that's where it should be open at. That's what I think,
Then that's fine, I just,
yeah.
in scheduling meetings and
Okay, September 28th.
Because the other one will have to approve the bid.
Right.
okay.
Okay. Hopefully, after the July 28th, fingers crossed, we won't need another meeting until September 22nd, but play that by ear. We'll hold a special meeting if we need to.
Right.
She should change.
Now, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Did you make the motion?
I didn't make
I didn't make one.
Oh, I thought you did. I was just on board with that. I make a motion we adjourn.
Okay, I'll make the motion in 2 seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Very close to register.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah.
Okay.
Registering for them.